Overlord Volume 4 Chapter 3 Army of Death Part 10, I can see it. Zenburu, seated near the back of Rororo, laughed as he looked forward. A few hundred meters ahead, they could see the first tribe marked for extinction, the village of the Razortail tribe. While it was about the same size as the Green Claw village, there were more lizard men here, probably because the lizard men from other tribes had steadily flocked to it. Now that they were preparing for war, everyone was very busy. It's hard to hold myself back with the mood in the air. There was an audible intake of air from Zenburu's nose as he inhaled the ambient scent. It was an odor that boiled one's blood. However, Crush had never smelled it before, and she said something different from the other two. Is it safe to ride over with Rororo? Having sensed the tense atmosphere from a distance, Crush the plant monster was starting to feel nervous, and she said as much. She was worried that the battle-ready lizard men would rush Rororo if he got close. They might know Zariusu, but not Crush or Zenburu, and it was not as though everyone in the Razortail tribe knew Zariusu either. No, it's the opposite. We're safer mounted on Rororo. A puzzled look appeared on Crush's face, obscured by leaves as it was. Sensing her confusion, Zariusu elaborated, my brother should have come by earlier, and he should have told them that I'd be riding Rororo. Therefore, news about us on Rororo's back should have reached him by now, so all we have to do is advance slowly. In fact, as Rororo was splashing through the marsh, a black lizard man emerged from the village. Zariusu waved to the familiar figure. And that would be my brother. I see. Oh, the two of them spoke as one. Crush was genuinely curious, while Zenburu was like a beast that had sighted a powerful entity. As Rororo moved forward, the distance between the two of them, between Zariusu and Chisuryu, grew shorter. Soon, they were close enough to see each other's faces, and the brothers looked at each other. They had only been apart for 2 days. However, they had prepared themselves for the eventuality that they would never see each other again, so their reunion was particularly touching. I'm glad you're back, Zariusu. And I have good news, Chisuryu. Chisuryu's gaze fell on the two people seated behind Zariusu. Zariusu felt Crush's arms tighten somewhat around his waist, due to her tension. Once they were in front of Chisuryu, Rororo stopped in front of the familiar face, and nosed at him with its 4 heads. Sorry, I didn't bring any food with me. In the instant Rororo heard those words, its heads immediately recoiled from Chisuryu, like a child throwing a tantrum. The Hydra might not be able to understand lizard men, but it must have telepathically sensed his thoughts. Either that, or it did not smell any food on him. Let's get off, then. After waving to the other two, he lightly hopped off Rororo's back, and then took Crush's hand as she jumped down. Chisuryu looked at Crush with a look of puzzlement on his face. And what's that plant monster? The fact that everyone reacted the same way left Crush a little demoralized, but she had no desire to contest it. That was probably due to Zenburu's constant needling of her. But the words which followed were a bombshell that made Crush stiffen up. She's the female that I love. Oh. Chisuryu murmured in awe. Then, he turned his attention to the still frozen Crush, who was holding his little brother's hand. Mew. One thing, is the person inside beautiful? And we're considering Mar. The sudden pain in his hand shut Zariusu up, because the person holding it had jabbed her claws into Zariusu's hand, and very forcefully too. Chisuryu looked at them with some displeasure. I see, to think someone like you who went on and on about appearances and said, what was it, you know I can't get married. You were just trying to act cool. You just didn't have anyone to fall in love with, anyway, back to business. I am Chisuryu Shasha, chief of the Green Claw tribe. Thank you both for joining us. The way Chisuryu spoke did not seek out confirmation of their alliance, but radiated the certainty that they would help. However, Crush and Zenburu were not the sort to be rattled by small things like that. We should be the ones thanking you. I am the acting chief of the Red-Eye tribe, Crush Lulu. Everyone expected Zenburu to introduce himself after Crush was done greeting Chisuryu, but they did not hear anything of the sort. Instead, Zenburu eyed Chisuryu from head to toe. After he was satisfied with what he had seen, he nodded and spoke with a bestial expression on his face. "Oh, so you're the one, the warrior who uses priestly skills in battle. I've heard of your deeds. I'm quite surprised that even the Dragon Tusk tribe knows of me." Shisuria's response felt like two wild animals circling each other. "Until your brother agrees to take the position, I am the chief of the Dragon Tusk tribe, Zenburu Gugu. Thank you for coming. You certainly seem suited to be the chief of the tribe which values strength. How about a go then? We need to show each other our strength, right?" "That's not a bad idea." Zariusu did not feel like stopping them. It was true that once they figured out who was stronger, many things would become much simpler in the future. However, Shisuria raised his hand before they could get into it, and put out the flames of Zenburu's eagerness for battle. "At least, I think it's a good idea, but now doesn't seem like the right time." "Why?" Shisuria smiled as Zenburu frowned. "The scouts we've sent out ought to be returning soon, so we'll be able to learn about the enemy. It won't be too late to spar after they've given their report, no?" Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit, Diamond Suit. There was a small house that was being used as the meeting room for the various chiefs. All the chiefs and Zariusu were here, for a total of 6 people. The name of Zariusu, bearer of Frostpain and slayer of the former chief of the Razor Edge tribe, was famous among the tribes. In addition, he was the hero who had persuaded the Red Eye and Dragon Tusk tribe to join their alliance, so none of the chiefs here opposed his presence. The 6 of them sat in a circle within the cramped interior. The 3 chiefs had been hard-pressed to hide their surprise when Crush revealed her snow-white skin, but they had calmed down now. After greetings were done with, the first to speak was the chief of the Small Fong tribe. He was small-framed for a lizard man, but he had honed his limbs until they were as hard as steel. He had originally been a hunter, so he was probably the best ranged attacker among all the lizard men around this lake. In fact, he had eliminated all of his opponents during the chief selection trials with a single well-aimed stone apiece. After mobilizing all the hunters to scout, he now understood the disposition of the enemy. The enemy numbers around 5,000. This figure was far in excess of the lizardmen's troop strength, but it was still within the range they had expected. Someone even sighed in relief as they heard that figure. "Then, who's the enemy leader?" "We're not sure." The scouts spotted huge monsters that looked like giant blobs of red meat, but it was hard to get close to them. "How about their makeup?" "It's an undead army, with skeletons and zombies." "Did they use lizard man corpses?" "No, the corpses did not come from lizard men." "I don't know land-dwelling creatures too well, so I'm not confident in identifying them, but they were probably humanoids of some sort, and I didn't see any tails." After hearing about those characteristics, Zariusu was sure that they were from a plains tribe, humans. "Can't we take the initiative and launch a preemptive strike?" "That would be difficult. The enemy is using a clearing in the forest as a staging area, but how long did they take to clear it? I didn't even see the logs which should have been left over." I've gone off topic. "In any case, they're in the forest. It's questionable whether we could get into position by ourselves. It would be very difficult if we had to bring the warriors too. Then how about sending the hunters to ambush them?" "Give us a break, Crushcoin. There's only 25 hunters. How could we defeat 5,000 undead? All we'd accomplish is dying." Then how about mobilizing the priests?" Several people nodded at Shisuria's suggestion, and turned to Crush. However, Zariusu answered the question. "I think it would be better if we did not." Why is that?" "The opposition has honored their agreement so far, but I don't think it'll extend to allowing us to launch a sneak attack." "Indeed. Seems like it would be best not to make the first move before all the tribes gather." "Then are we going to prepare for a siege?" "Defending sounds hard." That inarticulate voice came from one of the lizard men, the chief of the Razortail tribe. He was dressed in a suit of white armor, which shone with a luster not born of metal. The armor radiated a faint magical aura. It was one of the 4 treasures, the white dragon bone. This armor was made from the cold-infused bones of the frost dragons, which laired within the Azalisian mountain range. Of course, armor made of mere bones, even the bones of powerful beings like dragons, could not possibly be magical. Yet, somewhere along the line, that suit of armor had taken on magical properties. The problem now was that said properties might have been the result of a curse. That was because the white dragon bone converted intellect into defensive strength. If an intelligent person put it on, it would become harder than steel. It might even be able to rival the strength of mithril, or the legendary metal adamantite. However, the lost intelligence would not return even if the armor was removed. That was why the legends surrounding that item said it was cursed. The armor's wearer had originally inhabited the peak of lizardman intellect, and after he put on that armor, it became tough enough to deflect any and all weapons the lizardmen possessed, even Frostpain of the Four Treasures. Its hardness might well be on the same level as adamantite. Also, while the armor's wearers typically lost their powers of reason, and became mentally deficient, he was still capable of thought, which was a testament to his original intellect. As a result, the Razortail tribe no longer decided chieftainship succession through combat after he was born. Here is swamp. Poor foundation. Walls, easily broken. I see. Then, shall we sally forth? Why not? Feels better taking the offensive than to defend. I think each of us has to face 3, no 4 enemies? Easy enough, all we'll have to do is take them down. As they heard Zenburu's words, the others looked at each other. Eventually, Crush changed the subject. The question now is if the enemy has reinforcements, they might still be marshalling their strength. That's hard to tell. Given the size of that clearing, there shouldn't be any more space to fit more undead. That said, all they'd have to do is position them throughout the forest. The undead did not need to eat, drink, or rest, and they did not need large campsites. Therefore, it was very hard to tell their numbers from the size of their camps. It seems we had best consider a defense scenario for safety's sake. In that case, we of the Red-Eye tribe will strengthen our walls to tide us through the siege. I hope everyone else will help us with that. The other chiefs nodded in agreement, even the disappointed-looking Zenburu. In any case, let's start preparing our defenses. We also need to establish a chain of command. For starters, we'll assign command of the priests to Crush-san. She'll have authority over them in combat as well. Everyone agreed, save one. All the chiefs should form a separate squad of their own. Everyone's eyes went to Zariasu. I see, so that's how it is, little brother. That is, you want us to form an elite unit, then? Correct. The enemy is numerous, and if we don't eliminate their commander, we might well lose this battle. In addition, if they deploy monsters like the ones they sent to each village as messengers, we won't be able to overwhelm them with numbers. We'll need to destroy them using small teams of elite troops. Still, won't leaving our men leaderless result in confusion? Just, pick, replacement from head warriors. So even if there aren't any commanders, all they have to do is attack the enemy before them with all their might, What about having the elite squad give orders from behind and only move out when they find the enemy's headquarters, or if the situation turns bad? That ought to be pretty good, right? Then, let's form a 6-man squad with everyone here, including Zariasu. No, let's divide it further, into teams of 3. Dividing into 2 teams meant that they could fight in 2 places, but it also meant their strength would be divided and weakened. One team will be a search and destroy unit to deal with the enemy commanders, while the others will be responsible for tying up their garrison troops. In that case, I think having we 3 chiefs form one team ought to work. Zarius-san can group up with the chiefs he brought along. We'll adapt the team objectives to suit the circumstances. That sounds good. Will that be all right, Zariasu? Yes, I got it. Crush, Zenburu, do you object? I don't mind. Me neither. It's a shame we won't get to show our stuff, but I'll obey the winner. Then, there's still 4 days to the enemy attack? Yes. Then, is there anything which needs to be prepared ahead of time? We need to stockpile stones for throwing and to strengthen our walls. In addition, we need to let the various tribes mingle and establish working relationships so they can function in harmony. We of the small Fong tribe would like Shisuria to handle this, as before. We also feel it should be fine, and you too? Crush and Zenburu nodded in agreement. I'll be taking command, then. After this, we'll decide on our tasks for the next 3 days. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. After the day's work was done, Zaryusu walked silently through the bustling village. Several lizard men saw the brand on his chest and frost pane at his waist and greeted him respectfully. It felt a little troublesome, but he had to respond to them in order to boost morale. Therefore, he put a confident, dignified look on his face and replied in a bold, fearless voice. In this way, Zaryusu reached the location of the walls surrounding the village. Many lizard men were there, all their attention focused on erecting the walls as quickly as possible. First, they used vegetation to serve as the foundation for wooden pillars and to fill the spaces between them. Then, they covered them with somewhat drier mud. The priests would then enchant them, and the walls were complete. There were cracks on the surface of the walls, probably because their water content had completely evaporated. Then, they repeated the same process on the other side. Oh, Zaryusu. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, I just wanted to see what you were doing. Zaryusu splashed softly over the wet ground as he walked up to Crush, who was still in her plant monster getup. Then, he pointed to the unceasing activity before him. What is that? That's a dirt wall. We don't know what sort of enemies we'll face, so I wanted to make it difficult for them to attack us, though we haven't even finished half of it yet, since we don't have enough time. I see. Still, isn't it going to break easily, being made of dirt and all? It'll be fine. While a thin layer of dirt is easily broken, that's not the case for a thick wall of dirt. Granted, we haven't been able to gather enough material for it due to the hasty construction, and it'll be weakened if it rains, but it won't fall apart so easily. When he thought about it, just about anything would be difficult to destroy if it was made thick enough. Dozens of lizard men were working as fast as they could before Zaryusu as he agreed with that conclusion, but they were proceeding at a turtle's pace. Even if they pushed themselves for 3 days straight, the wall still would not be that long, but it was better than nothing. Currently, we're changing the structure of the fences on the places we can't cover up, so they can't be pulled down. In the direction where Crush was pointing, they had uprooted the wooden pillars and erected them on a triangular clearing. The space between them was laced with loose ropes that had been woven from plant fibers. Zaryusu felt that they seemed similar to the fence surrounding the Red Eye village. And what is that? We're going to put heavy objects in those triangular openings to ensure that the fence doesn't fall if it's pushed or pulled. Those ropes are meant to obstruct the enemy's movements. If they're drawn taut, they can be easily cut with swords or other bladed weapons, which is why we've left some slack in them on purpose. Crush eagerly answered Zaryusu's question. She had been the recipient of Zaryusu's wisdom during their journeys over the past few days, so she was delighted to be able to dole out wisdom for once. In addition, there was another emotion behind that. I see. That way it can't be easily destroyed. Those words of respectful praise filled Crush with pride. Zaryusu nodded vigorously. They were accelerating the plan to convert this village into a fortress as much as they could. While they could not begin to hold a candle to the defenses of humans or dwarves, it was the best they could do on these wetlands where movement was difficult. Come to think of it, Zaryusu, did you tell the warriors? Just as Crush said that, the wind carried the clamor of the warriors to them. Their voices were filled with excitement and seemed quite hot-blooded. What's happening? This cheering sounds familiar, that's it. They're cheering for a fight. Could it be that your brother is dueling Zenburu now? Zaryusu nodded. Then he realized Crush had revealed her face and seemed quite worried. Your brother's the supreme commander. Won't things be troublesome if he's beaten? I don't know. Still, my brother's strong too. Once he has an opening to use his priest spells, he'll get even stronger. For all I know, I might lose to him as well. Chisuryu's strength was extraordinary after applying several buff spells to himself. In addition, while he probably would not use offensive spells during a mock battle, if he did, even Zariasu, before he had come into possession of Frost Pain, would not be a match for him. After all, when Zariasu had defeated the previous owner of Frost Pain, the only reason why said owner had not used its special ability, limited to 3 uses a day, on Zariasu was because all 3 instances had already been expended on Chisuryu. That's good. Just as Zariasu thought he should show the worried Crush his brother's fighting form, he recalled the hidden worry he had not brought up until now. He did not know if he should mention it, but in the end he decided to do so. It was somewhat despicable to talk about something he had chosen not to speak of earlier, now that everything was largely settled. However, he could not hold back the pure and intense feelings he had, and he did not want to hide anything from her. There's one thing which worries me, Crush laughed as she heard the unease in Zarius's voice. She seemed to be making fun of him. The look on her face did not suit the mood in the air, or her character, for that matter, and Zariusu was left speechless. Therefore, it was Crush who spoke in his place. It's what you didn't bring up earlier, right? What if the enemy had already seen through our plans and anticipated that we would form an alliance, am I correct? Zariusu was silent, because she had hit the nail on the head. In other words, the possibility that the enemy might have given them all this time to prepare, informed them of the attack order, and allowed Zariusu to form his alliance, all for the purpose of gathering the tribes together so they could all be crushed in one fell swoop. Well, you would be worried, given that you're so prone to introspection. Still, no matter what, it would be best to fight the enemy first and worry about things like that later. Even if we win, the enemy probably won't give up. No, in all honesty, there's very little chance the enemy will give up. That may be so, but you were right about what you said that night. And look, there did not seem to be anything in the direction where Crush was pointing. However, Zariusu understood that she was referring to the entire village. Do you see how all the Lizardman tribes are struggling together for the same goal? Indeed, the Lizardmen were all working towards the same objective. Zariusu recalled the great feast which had been held to celebrate the alliance of the 5 tribes. The people of each tribe had mingled without reserve. Of course, it would be wrong to say that the survivors of the 2 destroyed tribes bore no grudges, but at the very least, they had managed to swallow their resentment. How ironic, Zariusu muttered to himself. He had always thought they would keep themselves secluded for all time, but he had not expected to see everyone united as one due to an external enemy. We should protect the possibilities that the future holds, Zariusu. The tribes coming together will surely spur us to grow. Zariusu had never seen the techniques of building walls with mud. However, now that all the other tribes knew it too, the Lizardmen tribes would surely build such walls in future. These sturdy walls would be able to keep out monster incursions. If that happened, the number of attacks on children would drastically decrease, and the Lizardmen's numbers would increase in turn. And as the number of people went up, they could use Zariusu's fish farms to feed them. Perhaps in the near future, this marsh might become the home of a large, united tribe of Lizardmen. Let's win this, Zariusu. We can't predict what will happen in the future, and for all we know, all this might be cleared up after we win this battle. If that happens, we'll be able to expand, and that might bring about a world where we won't need to worry about killing each other or food shortages. Crush smiled. Zariusu fought back the surge of emotion within him, because if he let it run wild, the consequences might be irrecoverable. Still, there was one thing he had to say, no matter what. You really are an outstanding female. After this battle, please tell me the answer to the question I asked when we first met. Crush's smile grew even brighter. Yes, Zariusu. I'll tell you after it's all over. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, Demiurge hummed happily as he worked. He picked up a polished bone and considered where best to put it. Before long, perhaps he had already decided, he shaved off part of its tip and slotted it into the article before him, which he was building. The shaved bone fit snugly into its place, as though it had always belonged there. If building a house without nails was called timber frame construction, then Demiurge's technique could be called bone frame construction. I have a good feeling about this. Demiurge smiled as he ran his fingers over the bones. He sensed that he would produce an outstanding work if he carried on like this. Still, I need a thigh bone from a male of about 120 centimeters in height. He could still complete it without the bone, but the finished product would not look as good. Under normal circumstances, he would let it slide, but this gift was intended for the beloved master to whom he owed his loyalty, so he had to complete it to the best of his ability. If only I could find a suitable bone. In high spirits, Demiurge moved on. The truth was that Demiurge enjoyed making objects like these. It was not a love for bone crafting, but a love for crafting in general. He was very interested in that field, covering items ranging from objets d'art to furniture, and his techniques had surpassed those of a casual dabbler. In fact, his current piece would draw gasps of awe from just about anyone who looked upon it, provided one disregarded the materials from which it was made. This tent contained other items as well, such as a statue of his master made from solidified lava, all sorts of chairs, assorted clamps, and so on. All of them were the handiwork of Demiurge. While those pieces were all built for functionality, and were not ornamented, they were still excellent specimens of workmanship. Demiurge picked up a piece of raw material from the corner of the tent, and began evaluating it. Just then he sensed movement from the tent's entrance. He gently put the bone back and squeezed the irreplaceable item, which his master had lent him, before focusing his attention on the movement outside. Under normal circumstances, the person outside ought to be one of his vassals, or his comrades. Nobody could breach that triple-layered defense without Demiurge's knowledge. Still, it was true that he had to be wary of the enemy who had dominated Shaltir. Several seconds later, someone opened the tent flap. He was dressed in white and wore a black bird-like mask with a long nose. It was Pulcinella. He was a clown who had been created by the supreme beings, much as Demiurge had. He had been assigned to assist Demiurge for this operation. After ensuring that he was not under mind control, the tension left Demiurge's eyes. At the same time, he released his grip on the artifact in his hand. Demiurge Sama, the skinning is complete. Demiurge felt a twinge of regret at those words. Originally, Demiurge would have done that work in person to savor it, but the need to be wary of their mysterious and powerful foe meant that he could not leave this place under normal circumstances. Thus, he had handed the task to Pulcinella. Taking care to keep his emotions hidden, Demiurge gave Pulcinella new orders. Well done. Then, begin the next step immediately. It would be rude to directly present something in that state to Ain Sama. As Pulcinella bowed gracefully, Demiurge asked him, "So, how many died?" "None. Thanks to the torturers, they only passed out, so we should be able to skin them soon." While some of them were unwilling to accept healing magic, it was well within acceptable parameters, so it is not a problem. Marvelous. Gathering the raw materials was an arduous task, and they had to perform several skinnings to recoup their investment. Even so, he had not used anesthesia or painless methods to remove the skins. "I want to make everyone happy." This sudden interjection made Demiurge think of Pulcinella's personality. Pulcinella was famous in Nazarick for his kindness and mercy. He had been created to make everyone happy, and so everything he did was intended to fulfill that purpose. Everyone in the great underground tomb of Nazarick is happy to serve Ain Sama. Demiurge nodded in agreement. "I see. Then, a question for you, Pulcinella. Do you mean that others will be happy to serve Nazarick?" "How could that be?" "That was not my meaning. Serving Ain Sama is truly a blissful thing, one that makes me want to shed tears of joy, but it cannot be counted as true happiness if it is forced." "Oh, then what should be done?" "Simple. Pick one person, and chop his arm off. Then, the others will compare themselves to that person, and count themselves fortunate." "How wonderful. And then, to make the person whose arm was chopped off happy, you simply chop off someone else's legs." "Oh, how happy I have made them." Demiurge nodded at the clown, who was laughing to the high heavens. "I see. You do have a there." Part 2 time would pass slowly if all one did was wait. However, it practically flew past when one was preparing for a task with a time limit. The appointed time had come. Today, the searing sun crawled slowly into the sky, which was a cloudless clear blue. There was no sound of wind, and the world was shrouded in a silence so profound that one could hear the proverbial pin drop. Pre-battle tension filled the air. Someone gulped and someone's breathing quickened. And after who knew how long since the gathered lizard men collectively decided to remain quiet, a hole appeared in the heavens and a cloud billowed forth. It expanded as swiftly as it had earlier, until it enveloped the entire sky. Soon, when the clouds obscured the firmament, when the sun's light was gone, and when all was darkness, the lizard men saw countless undead lurch out of the forest and over the border it shared with the swamp. The trees obscured them and prevented them from getting an exact count, so all they could see was an endless tide shambling forward. The attackers were 2,200 zombies, 2,200 skeletons, 300 undead beasts, 150 skeleton archers and 100 skeleton riders, for a total of 4,950 troops, not including the commander and his retinue. The defenders were the army of the 5 tribes. The Green Claw tribe had 103 warriors, 5 priests, 7 hunters, 124 males, and 105 females. The Small Fong tribe had 65 warriors, 1 priest, 16 hunters, 111 males, and 94 females. The Razortail tribe had 89 armored warriors, 3 priests, 6 hunters, 99 males, and 81 females. The Dragon Tusk tribe had 125 warriors, 2 priests, 10 hunters, 98 males, and 32 females. The Red Eye tribe had 47 warriors, 15 priests, 6 hunters, 59 males, and 77 females. Their combined fighting strength was 429 warriors, 26 priests, 45 hunters, 491 males, and 308 females, for a total of 1,380 people, not including the chiefs and Zariasu. A lopsided battle of over 3-to-1 odds was about to begin. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. This was a log cabin. It was simply designed and made of bare wood, with little ornamentation to speak of. However, it was a full 5 meters from floor to ceiling, and it was over 20 meters long and wide. There was hardly any furniture here, only a huge mirror hanging on the wall, a massive, sturdy table, and the chairs surrounding it. There were several people seated on those chairs, and on the table were many rolled-up parchments, magic scrolls. And this is the last one, a teleportation spell scroll. As the high-pitched voice, which called to mind the image of a young girl, spoke those words, another scroll was laid on the table. The person doing so was a humanoid girl in a maid's outfit. She was adorably cute, with her hair done up in 2 buns on the side of her head. However, she was surrounded by a strange air, and her eyes were quite unique. Said eyes were full and round, but like cheap glass marbles, there was no glow in them. In addition, they did not blink. Her slender body was fully encased in an enchanted maid's uniform, and the high collar completely obscured her neck. Besides her face, none of her flesh was exposed. She was one of the Pleiades battle maids, Entoma Vasilisa Zeta. And then there are the message scrolls, but the table is getting cluttered, so could someone please clear the table? Entoma looked at the highest-ranking person seated at the table, who nodded slowly in response. Then, please go ahead. Yes. Then. Please. Tidy. Up. Move. Quickly. After hearing Cositus acquiesce to Entoma's directions, the people around the table began working to clear the table. Each of them was a heteromorphic being. Some looked like praying mantises, some looked like ants, and one even looked like a gigantic brain. Each of them had a different appearance, but they had 2 things in common. The first was that they were Cositus's vassals, and the second was that they all served Nazarick. For that reason, they obeyed Entoma despite the fact that she was weaker than them. Within the great underground tomb of Nazarick's chain of command, the most crucial factor was not raw power, but whether or not they had been created by one of the supreme beings. From that point of view, Entoma ranked very highly. After verifying that the table had been cleared, "Then, please take these, Cositas-sama." Entoma spoke those words without moving her mouth, and then she picked up the bag by her feet, and produced several rolled-up scrolls. These are scrolls of message. According to Ains-sama, they were made with the skin that Demiurge-sama worked hard to obtain. Ains-sama also said that he would like feedback if any problems came up with their use. Island. That. So. I understand. I will inform him if such problems occur. Cositas took the scrolls from Entoma with one of his 4 hands. Now, it seems Demiurge has pulled even further ahead of me. He smiled bitterly to the servants around him as he said that. His servants responded with wry grins of their own. As he picked up the scrolls, Cositas sank into contemplation. Cositas had once heard that the supply of parchment for Nazarik's low-level spell scrolls was running low. Finding a place to replenish the stores needed to produce various items was a problem, which had to be solved sooner or later. The reserves were still ample for the moment, but if they kept drawing on them, they would eventually run out one day. Therefore, everyone, their master included, had begun work on rectifying that situation. Part of the solution involved the